In 2016 came Terraforming Mars, a very addicting, amazing experience of adventure. And when my friends introduced me to that game, I was, wow, really cool box, really heavy box, lots of cards, beautiful, everything, art. And he asked me, how you want to play, with draft or without draft? Or okay, we played three people, then four players, and it was a blast. A blast. Of course, the first time you have to get acquainted to the game, right? But I didn't expect to win anything. I just kept playing, and everything was. You felt, for example, the oxygen. Then here we have, okay, I'll place this tile here, which will help me. And as a colonization game, companies, and each company has its own powers, and it was something that I didn't see. I like to play lots of games, right? But that game was really different from everything I had played that time. By that time, how was it to create this amazing experience?
Yeah, Jacob came up with this idea after visiting the first Essen in 2011, because that's what we did when we started the company. We made some handcrafted wilderness copies, and we went to Essen to show the game. And that's what led us to make the crowdfunding campaign, and then printing the mass-produced copy of Wilderness in 2012. Jacob came up with the idea for Terraforming Mars after visiting Essen in 2011, so 5 years before we actually released it. That's when he just came up with the idea that, I should make a game about terraforming Mars, because that's what much of his enthusiasm is, with science, with Mars, and with science, like science fiction and future stories by Isaac Asimov and Heinlein and other science fiction authors. So he really likes the science and Mars. So he wanted to make a game about terraforming Mars, because that's also something that he had never seen before. And a lot of the game, the passion comes from bringing to life something that you have never seen before. Like, I want to play a game about terraforming Mars, but there's no such game, so let's make it. Okay. So he came up with this idea, and the same Christmas he came home to do the Christmas celebrations in our family. We usually, well, back then at least, 10 years ago, before a lot of us had this big families of our own, we had usually coming home to our parents' house and celebrating Christmas together. And he came home with a lot of pieces of paper, hand-scribbled notes. Everything was handwritten. It was not pleasant to the eye. It was really ugly. But he had this concept of terraforming Mars. And back then, terraforming Mars was purely a card game. There was no board. There was no... the parameters were on a piece of paper. So it's only like... it's not a game board. It's only some scales. You need to, put a tracker on it to see how much the temperature was. So it was very different back then, but he had this amazing idea and we all loved it. But then came, of course, 5 years of development. And for those 5 years, the game changed a lot. We added the board, we added milestones and awards, we added a lot of rules over the course of many iterations, of course. It changed a lot.
The milestones.
What?
The milestones neat idea. Also.
It was good. In 2015, we wanted to release the game. It was pretty good. We had captured a lot of the feeling of science and progression and the science fiction, and we wanted to release it. We had a lot of meetings in Essen in 2015 about who would want to join the print run and localize this game for other languages. And we actually had a lot of rejections. A lot of people who said, this game is going to flop. It's not going to be good. You need to do like everyone else does it. You need to take the cards and divide them into 3 ages. So you have the cards relevant for the beginning of the game in the beginning, and then you have other cards later. So you have to, this game is not going to make it. And they actually told us, you should leave this project for someone experienced, an experienced game developer. Maybe they can do something out of this, and you should just take a step back and leave this project. And we didn't want to do that. Of course, we were confident that this game was going to be good. To the rescue came Stronghold Games and Stephen Bonacore, who was the CEO of Stronghold Games back then. He had faith in this game, and he said, we're going to print this with you, and we're going to take the English version and be the main publisher of the English version. And he pumped up the volume of the first print run a lot, many thousands of several thousands of copies. Like I think it's 7,500 copies only for the English version, and that is all of a sudden a very big first print run. A really successful and anticipated game has about 10,000 copies in the first print run, and that's what we aimed for and what we actually achieved in the first print run, because we printed both in English and in German and in Polish the first print run. So much of this, the first print run was carried a lot by Stronghold Games, and Stronghold Games announced the game in 2016 then. And it actually sold out before it reached the stores. This enormous print run, it sold out before it reached the stores. So we had to print 20,000 more, and then 40,000 more. So it's sold out insanely quick. But this was actually in 2016. So let me go back one more time to 2015. So we had the choice to publish it in 2015. We wanted to do that because we felt that all over the culture and all over the society, things were starting to buzzing about Mars. So you had the Martian, the film. It was released in 2015, I think. And the year before that, it was the book. So the film came shortly after the book. So the book had really made a big impact, and then came the movie. You had Elon Musk of SpaceX starting to talk about space colonization and Mars colonization. So and in every science journal you picked up, at least popular science magazines, there was always something about Mars in every one. So we felt that this is going, the interest for Mars is really increasing a lot, and we felt that if we don't do this now, we might be late. Someone else might do this idea, and they will get all the credit and everything. So in 2015, we had the hardest decision we ever made as a company, and that was, should we release it now, or should we wait 1 year to finalize, to try to make it a little bit better, play test it some more, finish more of the graphics in a better way, and we ultimately decided that we wait 1 more year. And it was so scary because we knew that there's a lot of things happening now. And in 2016, when we released it, there was 5 games planned to be released which had the theme of Mars. So we were in the middle of a great big thematic boost about Mars. But we were I don't think we were the actually first to release, but we were among the first to release. I think 1 or 2 of the projects were postponed, and so we got a lot of the attention to our game, which actually other game designers had built up with their prototypes and their games. So we got a lot of attention right off the bat, a lot of reviews, and the reviews were great. And so that was the scariest decision we ever made, to wait 1 more year. And it was good because during that year we had a couple quite small, in terms of rules, there were small changes, but they were real game changers to the game. And I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but before we released the game in 2015, and a little bit before that, we had another turn system where actually each player played their entire generation before the next player played his generation, and then the next one played his generation. So there was a lot of downtime. There was a lot of waiting for each other, and we still thought it was a really nice game, and it was it had a lot of so amazing storytelling about this terraforming process, which a lot of people had never heard about before. But it was so slow. It was very slow, and when one person was about to make their turn, we just, okay, you can do your turn, and I go and grab myself a sandwich. Be back.
Okay.
So the last year of development actually made a huge difference, and without that last year, it would never have made it top 100, I don't think. So there was a critical small details which we adjusted, and some of those details were actually game changers.
I have a question. Thiago Leite, he
Yep.
works at the company which releases the board games, your games in Brazil, Meeple
Yeah.
BR, Meeple BR. And he sent us a question. Can we expect more content of Terraforming Mars, the board game? And what are the difficulties making spin-offs such as Ares Expedition and the Dice game?
Okay. Well, Tiago and I have been messaging each other about the production of those games. So he and I work together on Angel Fury, for example. So hi, Tiago. You can definitely expect more content for Terraforming Mars. In fact, we're going to launch a Kickstarter soon, in 1 or 2 months, roughly. We're still finalizing the last details, which will introduce something new and something more to the base game. So there will be more, and I can't tell you too much about it, but it's coming soon. And what about the difficulties? There's not a lot of difficulty making spin-offs. In our case, we're actually quite restrictive of making spin-offs, and maybe you don't think that because we're already released Ares Expedition and the Dice game is coming, so I understand that you might not trust my words for this, but we're actually quite restrictive. We want the Terraforming Mars world and the intellectual property that is Terraforming Mars to not get too bloated. And so there will be new content. What's the problem, the difficulties of making spin-off versions of Terraforming Mars? And it's not a big problem to make spin-off products, but we want all the products to be good. We want all of them to be true to the theme, true to the attention to detail. For example, like the base game is. Jacob is a PhD in chemistry, so he really likes the science, and we want it to be a science, well, more or less accurate. It's a mix between the science and the science fiction, but it's going to be science heavy, and we don't want to make spin-off products that are neglecting this or making a pure fantasy world out of it. We want it to be, legit. We want it to be good.
Yes.
And in our case, the difficulty is that we have so many projects that we want to work on that we don't have time to make the spin-off products. And a lot of people are approaching us to make spin-off products for Terraforming Mars, and we just, sorry, we don't have the time to do this, and we want it to be good. We want it to be involved, but we don't have time to be involved right now. So that's why we have had relatively few spin-off products for Terraforming Mars. And again, maybe you don't feel like there are few of them, but there would have been a lot more of them if we just let everyone have what they want.